Welcome to my first tutorial. Because I know that people watching this channel may not have any familiarity whatsoever with a sewing machine, I would like to begin with some basic information about using your sewing machine and also teaching you how to sew a straight stitch. And so with that, I have behind me just a sample block quilt where you just take squares and you just piece them together, and we call this patchwork. And so today I just want to give the brand new person the opportunity to learn and get comfortable with a machine and a straight stitch. And then if you are an intermediate or an advanced sewist, then this may not be the video for you, but you have to have somewhere to start. So that is my focus for today, is just to give you an overall view of how to start the process to learn to sew. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about some basic things. This is a basic sewing machine. You can actually find this at Walmart. You can find it at probably any fabric store. So one of the things you want to make sure you do is read what the manufacturer has for threading, your actual top thread, and then you also have a bobbin thread that you typically find. This one is a top loader. Sometimes they load in the front. And you just want to make sure that you follow all of the diagrams on both of these for threading it properly. So when it is threaded properly, you will have two different strings that are showing. You're going to have your top thread and you're going to have the one coming up from the bottom, which is your bobbin, your bottom thread. And so I typically pull mine out just a little bit. Also, it will vary with your machine, the number of different feet that you have that can be attached. These can easily be removed just by dropping the lever at the back of a machine typically. And then you can basically just sit the little bar back underneath, line it up, and a lot of times you can just drop it down and it will clap back into place where it needs to go. And so this is just some little things to kind of maybe just make sure you're aware of. And then once this is set up and working properly, you just want to do some test stitching to make sure that it works. Also check your settings. Right now I like to have my settings somewhere in the middle. So I'm trying to keep my stitches at 2, my stitch length at 2, and you want to make sure that you're using also a stitch that is just a straight stitch on your machine. And as you can see, this one has some varied options for different stitches as well. And so for just a straight stitch, it's number 2 on this machine. We're going to begin by taking 2 fabric squares and we're going to do right sides together. So that means both pretty sides basically of your fabric are going to touch each other, and the sides that are not what we call a pretty side, just the back sides, are going to be the parts that are actually what you see when you get ready to sew. And so for the quilt blocks, a lot of things that you're going to do with quilting, it's only going to require you to have a 1/4 inch seam. And so on my machine, it indicates where that 1/4 is. And so for this particular machine, it actually lines up on the edge of my presser foot. And so when I lower the foot, it's going to be the fabric lined up right here on the edge to be my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so before I begin, you will notice that I'm going to get my fabric kind of back some to make sure my needle will catch it good. I'm going to make sure I'm on that seam, and I'm going to lower the presser foot, and then I'm going to go ahead and take the knob of my machine and lower my needle because I want to make sure my needle is in the fabric. Now, all of these come with a presser foot, and so I'm going to just press my presser foot at the bottom, and I'm going to take 2 or 3 stitches forward, and then I'm going to press my reverse button, and I'm going to back stitch 2 or 3 stitches. And the reason I do this is so that I don't have to tie it off, and it'll automatically hold my stitches in place very easily. And then I'm just going to continue at a pace that's comfortable to press and equal. And I'm just going to continue to let that machine go and stitch. And then when I get very close to the end, I'm going to hit this reverse again, and back stitch a couple of stitches, and then I'm going to come forward completely off. Once I have come off the fabric, we're going to raise the presser foot. We're going to make sure the needle's up if it happens to be down, and we're just going to gently pull it out. And then I like to have some scissors handy. You can use large scissors or small ones, but these embroidery scissors are great. And then also sometimes on the side of your machine, you may have a blade that lets you cut for you. And so sometimes I will use the side blade and not the embroidery scissors. Now, one of the things that you will notice is that you want to sometimes use a thread that's not going to show through on the reverse side. So when I open this up, you're going to see that you do not know what color thread I used. I used something very pale yellow that would blend. And I am going to go ahead and immediately press my seams. Now, because I'm doing these blocks, I'm just going to go ahead and press my seams open. And so I like to have my iron kind of handy and close by when I'm sewing so that I can just iron as needed as I go. So I'm just going to finger press open the seam I just created, and I'm just going to take my iron and just gently press that completely open on the back side where I made my seam. And then I have 2 squares that have been pieced together with a perfect stitch. And if I wanted to do another one, I would just do face down on one that I just did, and I would continue to sew again just as I did. So we're going to make sure that we have both threads still hanging out. We're going to line it up on that 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to lower the presser foot. We're going to lower the needle, and we're just going to stitch forward a couple of stitches, back stitch a couple of stitches, and then continue forward. Again, once we get close to the edge of the machine, we're going to go ahead and start to back stitch a couple of stitches and then come completely off, raise that foot, pull this out again, and like I said, you can use what's on the side, and then you want to also clip the ones that you have from the beginning, and you have again sewn another square to the previous. And then again, we just go straight to our iron. We can finger press this open. They do make tools that you can use to press it open, but your fingers work just fine, and you want to press those seams also. And so you will just continue this process of putting blocks together and just practice making a straight stitch. And this is just a great way to learn. And when you're done, if you wanted to do 3 blocks and then you wanted to do another set of 3, then you can piece these together as a row, and then you have the start of a little 6 block that you can use for something that's patchwork. So very quickly, I'm going to go ahead and just show you how you can do this. I'm going to pick up 2 more squares, and I'm going to go ahead and follow the same process as before. I'm going to open this up. Okay, I'm going to come back in just a minute and press the rest of this together instead of individually, since I'm not sewing where that seam is at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this square to it and go ahead and sew it here. And then I'm just going to iron both seams at the same time and show you how to come back and piece this together as one patchwork block. So we're going to just continue the straight stitch, back stitch at the beginning, and we're going to also back stitch towards the end and let it come off the machine just as we've done. Again, cut all of your threads. So now I'm going to come over here and iron these 2 seams open. Again, it's very simple just to get it open with a finger press. Get that ironed open. We're going to do the same thing here. Okay, and so now we have just completed 2 different rows of just squares with straight stitches that can now become a whole entire patchwork block. And so to do this, all I have to do is take the top row and put it face down. And because I want it to be joined here in the middle, this is going to be where I sew that next seam. And so we're just going to put this together. Now, one thing to point out is that you do want to make sure that your seams on both blocks are perfectly aligned, and you can just pull it back and look that they are aligned in order. This is where you can clip or pin. They do make clips that you can use. These are very easy and fast to use. If you don't like clips, you can also use a straight pin. And if you choose to use a straight pin, you can just put the straight pin in on the seam somewhere close by and just kind of put it in like that. Now, don't sew over your pins and don't sew over your clips. This is just to hold it together while you sew it together. So now we're going to sew down this side here. That would be the middle. And again, we're going to line it up on that 1/4 inch seam. We're going to start and back stitch. And we're going to continue. And so I'm getting close to the pin, and I don't want my fabric to roll up on me. So I'm going to keep my needle down in the fabric so I don't move it. And I'm carefully just going to take that pin out and lower my presser foot, and I'm going to continue to sew. When I get close to the clip, we're going to do the same thing. Notice here my needle is down in the machine and the fabric is starting to kind of curl up. So I want to just raise my foot with the needle down to get that underneath, to keep it straight. And we're going to continue to sew straight and back stitch near the end and then come off the fabric. Go ahead and cut the threads that are left, and then we're going to open this up. And when we open this up, this time I'm just going to press it forward like this on the front, because if I was going to continue to make blocks and continue adding rows, then I'm going to have seams that are going to go different directions when I start adding more to those. And so you don't always have to press open, but you want to press in a way that leaves it least bulky. Now, if you want to press this open as well, you can still do that. That's perfectly fine. I could still press this open, or I could leave it pressed to one side the way that I just did that to iron it when I took it off the machine. So you have choices. It's up to you. If you're going to continue to piece, sometimes it's good to press to one side and then press the next row the opposite direction if you're going to piece it. But it's that simple to sew a straight stitch, and it's very simple to take a row by row and continue adding and make a patchwork block. And so I hope this has helped you get some tips and tricks for sewing today, and I hope that you'll come back and look at our next tutorial on applique. We're going to make a sunbonnet Sue, and we're going to learn how to piece that in the next video. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.